Hey there! In today's video, I want to talk to you about how I plot and use romance beats to get through my story. But before I get started, I am Jay Nicole. I am a romance author with over 40 books. And in the last 10 years, I've learned a few things. Still learning, but learned a few things I like to share with you. And one of those is romance beats and how I plot my stories, which actually helps me to get out tons of words every day. Now my word count goal is up to 5,000 words, and I like to finish that kind of before the day gets started. So within a few hours, I have 5,000 words, and within a few weeks, I have a book complete. So in my romance beats, I'm going to talk to you about, kind of how I plot out my story. For those of you who do not like to plot or follow a beat structure, don't fear. There's still room for all the creativity that you can imagine. This just allows you to keep the story going in a certain way that readers can expect and love. So, what is a romance beat, anyways? If you're a pantser, maybe this is something that you haven't really thought about, but a romance beat is a significant point in a romance story that keeps the story moving forward. It's something that readers can typically expect, and some, probably without thinking of it, kind of follow the trajectory of a relationship in the romance beat in a romance novel without even knowing it. So, here are some that I use. Ordinary world. This is before we even see the couple together. What is the hero doing? What is the heroine doing before they meet each other? Their lives before everything gets kind of flipped upside down when they meet that other person. In this, it depends on the story, really. For me, sometimes I give this a couple of chapters. Sometimes I give this a couple of paragraphs before I give them the meet cute. But I give them some type of detail to the reader so they know who that person is that they should be rooting for before the story gets started. The meet cute. This is that point when they meet, that aha moment, whether they are going to fall in love in an insta love, whether they hate each other because they have some prior um, relationship, or maybe they're friends. But what is that point when they meet and are introduced to each other, are introduced to your readers on the page? So it doesn't necessarily have to be when they meet in their relationship, but when are the readers going to see them for the first time on the page? Rebuffed. So you may have some space between when they meet and when that heroine kind of approaches the hero, or vice versa, whoever's approaching who. But when that other person's like, skirt, wait a minute, I'm not really ready or want all of that. This is that point when you do that. You kind of allow them to express some interest, but then have one or the other decide that they're not compatible, or for whatever reason don't want to pursue a relationship with that partner. Wise friend counsels. So this is when someone on the heroine side or the hero side kind of points out that, hey, that guy or that girl, that's that person that you need to actually be pursuing in your relationship. um, Obviously there's some time in between the friends counseling them and when that initial approach happens, but this is a key point that you like to call out when someone outside of themselves kind of highlights, like, what are the good things and or characteristics in that other person that may be something worth looking into, something worth pursuing. Acknowledge interest. This is that time when the heroine decides, hey, maybe I do kind of like you. Or when the hero is looking at the girl like, okay, wait a minute. There's something about her I like. This is when that time happens, and it's really good to call out this to the reader so that they know, like, what exactly is it about that person that hero or that heroine is even interested in. Give this, heighten this up, allow the readers to see on the page why it is that they're even attracted to each other. First quarrel. Okay, so there's going to be some time before they express interest, hopefully, in between the time that they actually have that little fight. But it's kind of good, some angst, introduce some angst to the characters into their relationship and allow them to have a disagreement. Because as much as we would love in real life to meet someone, fall in love, and not have any arguments, that's not exactly reality. Sometimes people fight. And on the page, when readers see that fight and that argument, it allows them to see how they would work through that, because Storytelling really is the opportunity for a reader to see how someone else will handle things. It allows them to kind of take that sideline role and say, okay, well, how would someone else handle that situation? And maybe in real life, if that ever happens to me, maybe I can use that in my situation or not, never ever use that in my real life situation. But a quarrel or a fight, a disagreement, argument allows the reader to see how those two people in that relationship will deal with that disagreement. The dance. So obviously, there will be times when there will be some back and forth, some give and take when the hero isn't falling madly in love with the heroine, or vice versa. But you have to show that on screen. You have to show that back and forth, how they are kind of working everything around them in their universe to make that relationship work, or how they're not, how they're failing at it, how are things falling apart terribly, and how they can bring that back together again. The black moment. This is what some readers have started to hate. Um, and I can't say that I hate it. Sometimes you do have to kind of fall apart to bring it back together again. And this is that moment. This is when that love interest decides, like, you know what, there's too much going on in my life right now. I really don't have time for a relationship for whatever reason. We can't be together. Or the heroine or the hero decides like, yeah, maybe I'm not really ready to play turn in my player's card and this ain't gonna work. Whatever it is, pull them apart. If you are, on the reader side and you hate this, don't pull them apart. Allow them to overcome everything and not have that moment when they have to break apart. If you decide, for the reader's sake, that you're not going to pull them apart, this may not be as relevant. But once you've pulled them apart, you got to get them back together again. There has to be something, some force that brings them back together to make them realize, you know what? Like, I tried to be away from you, girl. I tried to be away from you, boo. But babe, it's you and me. We need to be together. This is that point when you bring them back together again. And then maybe something else happens and they pull apart a little bit. And, they have to work through some things before they actually get that happily ever after because let's face it, we want to see them work for it. We don't want it to all just be handed to them because if we saw them everything just be so fatefully blissful, then maybe this story is not really worth reading because in real life, it's not that easy for us. And we want to see someone else struggle. Let's face it, in reality, we are driving by the wreck, straining our necks to see what's going on because that's just how we are in our human nature. We want to see people struggle, unfortunately. And in romance, there's no difference. We want to see them struggle. So something may need to pull them back apart again so that they can fight to get back to that happily ever after. Then we see that together at last, that all the angst of everything they went through, they're back and they made it and they've overcome everything that they were individually facing or facing as a couple to get back together. And now we kind of see them working together again, kind of blissfully, like everything is kind of getting there. There may be some things that they go through after all of this that you see them kind of happily together. Depending on your story length, this may be kind of quick. It may be like they got back together, they're good, everything's great, and they get there happily ever after. Or the story is a little longer and you want to kind of show the readers, like, what does it look like now that they've overcome everything that they need to overcome? What does that look like for that couple to be together? And sometimes we want to see that. We want to see, like, okay, yeah, they really worked it through just to be reassured that, like, nothing else is going to pop up and bring them back apart again. We want to kind of see that. So give those readers that appreciation for this relationship that was just built and everything they fought for. Bring them back together again. Then finally, if you are writing romance, this is a must. Like, you may skip all the other beats, you may rearrange them, throw them upside down, put them out the window, kick them out the door, whatever. But this happily ever after, it's a must. Like, we aren't reading romance unless we have a happily ever after or a happily for now. And the difference is a happily ever after is we see them together in some type of a union, be it a marriage or whatever type of ceremony you want to give them. We see them together and we know that it's those two together forever, or happily for now, depending on the age range of your characters. We could say, like, okay, yeah, they're together. Life happens and maybe they won't be together later, but for right now, they're happy and they're together and they made this relationship work. So, but whatever it is, the end of your romance novel needs to be expected. So we're all expecting as a reader to come to the end and see those two or more, depending on what type of romance novel you're writing, those characters together. We don't expect heartbreak at the end of a romance. We don't expect gloom and doom and outrage at the end of a romance. We aren't trying to chuck the book across the room, with the exception if you're writing a series and the series is going to lead them to a happily ever after. And in that case, your story arc will span across books. But at the end of the story of these characters, we want them together. So whatever that looks like and whatever that will be in the span of your book and or series, make sure they come back together. We want to see that because it's a romance, okay? I hope this has been helpful. Again, I am Jay Nicole, a romance author of over 40 books, and I'm just here to share some tips with you. So if you liked this video, please click the like button, subscribe to see more videos like this. And if you would like to see or hear from me about something else, please drop it in the comments or reach out to me on my socials. I'll be happy to help. Thank you. Have a great day.